I just figured if Travis and Doug weren't going to come, why should I? Welcome, everyone. It's time for Connect This. Just starting off very, very seriously. We found out this morning that Doug wasn't going to be able to make it, and then Travis immediately came up with a reason why he wasn't going to come also. Fortunately, I had already asked Heather Mills to join us. So Heather is here as a panelist, and Kim is here, and then Sean is filling in as well. And we're going to have another special guest in a minute. But as we get to that, I'm Chris Mitchell at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. We're going to be covering a bunch of stuff today about BEAD and local connectivity. I'm going to talk a little bit about perhaps some industry trends and things like that. But Kim, you and I are the OG people today. So you ready to hold it down?
I'm ready. Right after I saw Doug's email, I went and bought some vitamin C. I'm ready to not get sick the rest of this year. Let's go, Chris.
Excellent. And we're back on StreamYard. How do you feel about that, Kim?
I personally like it because it seems to work easier, but what else? What else?
Yeah, I was happy about it. Although I don't know, for some reason today my camera is super low contrast, and I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to figure that out. But we had to go start the show.
Maybe it's your hair. Maybe it's your hair. It doesn't want to show all your hair.
It could be. I didn't do anything special today with it, and so my camera decided to just do that. Heather Mills, a repeat guest, principal consultant now with ITG Communications. You're still at the same people. It's just you got a new name.
Yes, that's exactly right.
How are things?
And I also, great. I figured out how to soften my skin with the settings in the video settings. So maybe that might be something you could look at as fixing your problem there if you're worried about it.
Yeah,
but things are good. Yeah, the entire team is still working and moved over to ITG mid-September. So it's been great.
Y'all have an autoresponder. You're basically like, look, we're not Tilson anymore. Stop sending us those Tilson emails. That's how I figured it out.
I'm living in what I call the Outlook vortex, where for a little bit while longer, I'll be forwarding those emails on. I unfortunately discovered the hard part about that is that when I hit reply on an email that's been forwarded, it then replies back to my Tilson old email account and then forwards that back on to me as well. And so I ended up with like 100 emails one day, and I'm like, I didn't send them any email. What's going on? So
yeah, it's 2025 and this is still an issue. Sean, how are you doing?
Reaching deep into the bench, Chris. Nice. I'm feeling good. You know, my Warriors off to a good start. Steph was hot last night, so hopefully to carry that momentum. And then I was listening to the theme music coming in, and it reminds me to say that I like this newish theme music. It's a little bit more funky, you know what I mean? I like some funkiness, you know, a little bit of bass.
What you were trying to say is we were boring before, Sean, and now we're like leveling up at 1 inch of hipness.
Leveling it up.
Okay. Good job, Chris. Good job.
Yeah, no, I'm Rye. You know, all the good stuff is definitely Rye's department. I'm responsible for being lazy and ill-prepared, which are related. So we are going to talk about, we're going to go back to BEAD a little bit because there's been some news, but also because we were just down in Texas. Jordan and I were just down there. And I should say, for people who aren't familiar, Sean Gonsalves is on my team. He's our associate director for research. No, sorry. I lost Heather in my brain stuff. Heather disappeared. She's not backstage. She's just gone.
I just replaced Rye apparently too.
Sean is the associate director for communications, and anyway, has been on the show before, stepping in from time to time. Does a lot of writing and speaking and stuff like that. But Jordan and I were the ones down talking in Texas.
I'm very limited on Connect This because I mean I have a face for radio.
You're like the best looking of us. I'm sorry, Kim. I was thinking of like me, Doug, and Travis, and then I was like, I just said that in harsh Kim.
All right, exactly.
It's okay. It's okay. I think it's absolutely true. It's that we're not lookers here on Connect This. That's why we don't invite Sean very often, because we don't want to be upstaged.
So Jordan and I were in Texas, in San Antonio, working with some folks who are focused on how to make sure that everyone in San Antonio and South Texas can have better internet access. And the goal being that we're going to work with people who are going to be organizing with people to figure out how do we get people good connectivity, or if they need other things like devices and training, which seems to be more common at this point, a lot of those challenges. So we're working with folks on that. And in the course of it, Jordan ran through the numbers of what Texas is doing related to BEAD, and it was a bit stunning. And so I was like, Jordan, you should come on and just share it on the show, and we'll talk about it a little bit. So Jordan is our digital opportunity coordinator. Come on up.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, first time on the show. I joked with Chris and said I feel like my goal the first 2 years of being with y'all was try to be behind closed doors like how Rye is, and now here I am on Connect This, on the podcast. I feel like I'm all over the place now.
Jordan, you're just on Connect This. Nothing really important, right?
This is the most important show on Fridays.
There's going to be a documentary in like 10 years about the meteoric rise of Mr. Pittman, and this is going to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So take a picture of this when the documentary happens. Like, we can go back on this and laugh. But yeah, I'm happy to be here and talk a little bit more about BEAD, specifically in Texas.
So what is happening in Texas? Like, what did you cover when we're talking with people about what's going on down there related to BEAD?
Yeah, so just like a quick synopsis. So when we were down there in Texas, what me and Chris were just talking about, I kind of gave like a quick presentation over kind of funding, because I think for a lot of folks, because we're talking for context to business leaders, sometimes there's people that are not within the space. They're just like, oh, why are we still talking about broadband? Why are we still talking about internet? Like, wasn't BEAD and all that funding, wasn't that supposed to be to solve all those issues? And so when I was really cracking down the numbers, what I found was, if we take a step back in the very beginning, when the IIJA was passed, every state was required, specifically with BEAD, to kind of do a 5-year plan. It's like, hey, what's your 5-year plan on what the money is? What do you think your state needs to make sure everybody's connected? So when I was looking at that, and I went back to look at Texas's plan, they mentioned that they need about $10 billion to make sure everybody's connected in Texas. Now, again, that $10 billion was like a combination of both public and private investment. So I was like, curious. $10 billion is what the state themselves said, hey, this is what we need. And then when after all the BEAD reconstruction happened, what it found is that Texas is just left with $1.2 billion of just public funding. And with that funding, the most locations that they were given to was to SpaceX and Starlink. So in my head, I'm just like, okay, this goes into what we've been talking about, right? Like, BEAD was supposed to be, again, this once in a generation, or like Chris loves to call internet for all, his favorite term ever. It's supposed to be sort of just knock it out the park and you're done. But from time and time again, I think a lot of people in this space already are saying, okay, this is the floor. This isn't the ceiling. This is a great starter point. But the things that we need to be doing moving forward is going to have to be beyond BEAD, beyond DEA, wherever the case may be. So what I found when I gave that presentation to everybody is like, hey, you're not even giving the original thing the money that you're originally going to get. Like, Texas was originally allocated $3.3 billion, and now they're getting 1.2. And then from the actual 5-year plan, they talked about having over 1 million locations in Texas that are unserved or underserved. And then when you find what that final number, they only have 240,000 locations that they said are going to be covered. So you have less locations than you asked for. You're doing way less, at least public investment, than you asked for. And then that investment that you're doing, most of that's going to Starlink, which isn't going to actually invest in these rural places. So to me, it just starts this whole conversation of just like, okay, we're going to be back here in a couple of years, and people are going to ask, why are we doing this? And it's just like, because we didn't invest this money properly.
I love how passionate, Jordan, you got on this subject and how many years of just following it. Because I think you're saying what everybody's been saying for years is, how do you educate a consumer, or how do you educate consumers and government officials of what the difference is? And I think that's a big problem. But Heather is more of an expert on this than I am by far.
Well, let me ask you, Kim, before Heather, the expert Heather weighs in. We're gonna call her expert Heather from now on. Were you surprised to hear Texas went from 1 million connections to 240,000?
Not really. I mean, I think I thought that this was going to be coming, but it is a dramatic drop in locations. And I think it makes me question of why they were dropped. Is there really other competition, or was the fixed wireless really covering that many at these speeds we were seeing? I don't know. But I do think to go from 1 million to 200 and what did you say, 70,000, 50,000? That's a huge drop. So,
expert Heather, before we let the good-looking man weigh in, what's up?
So, the IIJA, that JA means Jobs Act. So, Infrastructure and Jobs Act. So, Jordan, very interesting point of view, right? The thing that a lot of people forget is that this program was designed to boost economies as well, to create jobs in those areas. And so in grant world, in my mind, part of what's been challenging in explaining to people is how SpaceX will help with that. I'm sorry if there's an echo in here.
Yeah, I don't know where it's coming from. Jordan, mute yourself for a second. Let's just see if it goes away, or Sean.
Oh, that seemed to help. So SpaceX isn't necessarily adding any local jobs in Texas. And quite frankly, they've already been providing services in Texas. So what the state is really doing is sending money, giving money to SpaceX to reserve capacity so that if somebody really wants to pay that much for SpaceX services, they certainly can. And this is where we start talking about where the floor is, because the appetite historically for satellite style services has been very low and continues to be very low, even though there have been advances in the technology that get you, somewhat subpar speeds, but are still sort of technically that. But there's also a great question that Kim brought up, which is why did they drop those locations? So Jordan, I'm wondering, in the reading that you've done and the information that you've seen, was there a reason that they noted the dramatic change in sites?
No, this is the thing that I've been mulling over a little bit, because if you read the final proposal that Texas, the Broadband Development Office, sent out, there's not really a specific reason why those drops was mentioned. Now we can theorize what that is. It could be mapping. It could be, fixed wireless claims. It's like, oh yeah, we actually can cover those locations. But from what I've seen up to this point, there's not like an explicit reason why those drops occurred. Now, you could argue also is to, what's the word I'm looking for, to be more efficient with the funds. But again, I think it's really important, critical to hold each state accountable to their original 5-year plan that they wrote themselves. Did they send to NTIA saying, hey, we have 1 million locations, over 1 million locations that are unserved and underserved. So I'm just like, where's that change? Why did that change happen? And they should be accountable to answer why that happened.
Well, and I think the devil is in the details, because they had to file a number of Excel spreadsheets, CSVs that identify everything that was previously done and then change things over. So there's probably some analysis that needs to be done there. But it also wouldn't surprise me if they determined that a number of people or a number of BSLs were already served technically by satellite or something already, and they just had the,
isn't that
to
the
go
logical
through a
choice?
process.
Isn't that the logical reasoning? But I was wondering too, while you were speaking, is it also because Texas has become a hotbed for private investment in this space as well? And I know you're seeing more people building into some of these areas. Do I think it's a 750,000 reduction? No, but I wonder where they're reconciling the numbers of 1 million, because a lot of action has happened in that state, to be very
honest. So
honest.
that's one of the things, right, is that we've seen in some states is that we're gonna get to you in a second, Sean, but just wrapping up this point, multiple reasons why the number of of locations would have dropped, right? One is the rescue plan dollars and other interventions from the federal government dropped money on Texas that would have reduced some of those locations. The Trump administration ruled that some of the eligible locations no longer were eligible. So areas in which a person may have had unlicensed fixed wireless previously would have let them be eligible for funding for a better service. And now they are not eligible anymore. And also one other thing I just want to note is that the 1 million wasn't an accurate number, right? The 1.1 million, like no one really thinks that was the real number. Like it was almost certainly a significant undercount because there's no real good data as to like where access is. And we're constantly seeing reports of the Cost Quest data being inaccurate, which we could talk more about later because Heather is an inside scoop on some of this. But the simple fact is the federal database is deeply inaccurate. And so there's a number of things going on at the same time, but it is pretty interesting that we have such a significant drop. And I don't think this is unique to Texas. I just think a lot of people haven't gone back to the 5-year plan to remember us what the baseline was. Sean, do you want to weigh in on any of this?
Yeah, well, I it's not that I want to weigh in. I just want to be clear here. You keep saying they. Who? The Texas Broadband Office or the NTIA? How did those numbers get dropped down? And why would Texas leave $2 billion on the table? I mean, and also, I just think about how maybe behind closed doors, Texas just wanted to look like they were saving, the benefit of the bargain. Who's benefiting from this bargain? It doesn't seem like the residents of Texas are. And doesn't Texas have a pretty famous, at least part-time resident who has skin in this game?
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear. Like, so Elon's down there, and the governor, as my understanding, the governor's been bragging about turning money back to DC. The state of Texas, so interestingly enough, like the $2 billion that they're going to not spend is the most, but they had the most that was allocated to them, right? I don't think we know the numbers on California yet in terms of what they're proposing, but Nebraska might have turned away the most proportionally because I think they turned back like 80% of their dollars or something, which is insane because they were considered to have be one of the states that had the least amount of money per area that needed to be served at a high cost. And so there's all kinds of weirdness through here, and a lot of it has a lot more to do with politics and positioning for the future of the Republican Party than it does what is best for these rural communities that have been left behind. Kim?
What are they getting by turning this money back in? I get I get the political favor and the current executive branch of getting some love there, but what do they get in the long run for?
I don't know. The governors of Louisiana and a number of other places are fighting hard to try to keep the money, but Texas seems to be like, hey, where do we send it? We'll do it tomorrow. Heather, go ahead.
I was going to say it's probably more than just the big P politics that you're talking about, meaning on the national level. It's also probably local politics on the local level. Keep in mind who the incumbents are in the state and how they potentially benefit in the future from satellite not doing well.
I thought you were going to say benefit from, taking credit for, saving taxpayer dollars and.
No, I want you to. It's about money in the long run, right? But think about it from that level of who else is in there, and what scores are being tracked. I would say that there's incumbents in there, and I'll include SpaceX in that. By the way, there's incumbents in the state that have particular interests that they've been advancing, and this plan that Texas puts out supports that.
Jordan, you want to show the map of how the awards are going down currently so we can talk about that?
Yeah, so I want to make one last point before I pop the map up here. Those 240,000-ish locations that are now finalized, the most locations are being given to Starlink. So when I pull the map up, you'll see the red dot specifically are satellites. So I'm going to pull it up now.
And
so you can
keep in mind, I'm sorry, keep in mind.
No, Heather, go ahead.
Keep in mind, too, that every state broadband office was told after they'd done a good amount of work what they had to do to lower costs even more. Meaning the NTIA is calling shots on these decisions, partly because they want to make sure that they are getting the benefit of the bargain. But
don't call it the benefit of the bargain. Come on, like let's be very clear about what's happening. Honestly,
I'm gonna be contrary to you as much as possible, so we have a great discussion, right?
There you go.
But if you remove your passionate stance on that framing, they are framing this as saving taxpayer dollars, and I get that logic. But what we are sure of is that it's forcing the states to abandon plans that they had made in earnest at the direction of the IIJA, which was a bipartisan law that the Republicans had a significant amount of sway in how that would come together. So all of these tasks, all of this planning, it was about being responsible with tax dollars. So to come in June and say, it's taking too long, we're just going to do this in 90 days is, in my mind, backtracking on that a bit, but also then saying, we're going to take a much closer look at everything that you do and tell you how we think it should be done. And then they used version 6 of the map of the fabric and didn't update any numbers. And that's really challenging for state broadband
most of the
offices.
listeners don't know what that means. Can you back up?
Sure.
What does version 6 mean?
Version 6 means that's the map that we're using as the North Star for what is considered BSL, what is considered unserved and underserved. And it's been 2 years or two different updates since the NTIA has updated their map. So they paid for version 6 and then they didn't, update, from my understanding from there. So every state broadband office is having to manage that disparity. And that is a challenge because now you're dealing with less money. You're being told you can only do less things, and you have inaccurate data because in the 2 years since that fabric was released, other advances have been made. ARPA projects are now in there or have changed, slightly. And also keep in mind that the NTIA had to set a demarcation point at which the program could move forward. So I don't blame them for picking version 6, but I think
But I have a question with that, Heather.
Yes,
if we're going to pull back and we're going to ask these states to rebid, how can we go back to a map that is old instead of using the most current one today?
Because the NTIA said so.
Okay, that's
the answer. The NTIA said so. That's how they've been, what they're operating under. That's how they would like to proceed. And I'm sure that someone is thinking about what this means at the end of this part of it. So
let's be clear about what is happening here, right? The federal government, after decades of ignoring local preferences, local knowledge, had constantly spent money inefficiently, billions upon billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars ultimately, throwing money at companies like AT&T and CenturyLink and Frontier to build stuff that was obsolete before the check was cashed, to build tech that would basically not solve the problem at all. The Congress, and then also those companies often didn't even make the investments. Then Congress came along and said, you know what? We've learned. Like, it took us 5 times. We wasted all this money over and over again with very little actually being built. But we've learned, and we're going to do this, and we're going to create these state offices. We're going to have this whole big process to build local authority. Those state offices are going to go around the state to find out what people need locally, and so they go through this whole process. They build it up. They talk with people. They do public comments, and just when they're getting ready to actually build the networks, the Republicans come in and say, you know what we have in DC is these unelected bureaucrats. There's like 5 of them, and they're going to make all of the decisions now, and they're going to focus on saving money. And despite the fact that we told millions of people that we were going to take their preferences into account, and we're going to make investments, we're going to create jobs, we're going to put tens of billions of dollars into rural America for like long-term economic growth and benefits to revitalize communities, we are instead going to take half of that money back and just do nothing with it to benefit rural America. Maybe we'll give it to Argentina. They like it. They need money. Hold on a second, Sean. Hold on a second. So, but like the money that we are going to spend, a lot of that we're going to send to Elon Musk so that it's not going to your community. It's not going to a local ISP who's paying local taxes, right? It's not going to be something that is like helping to revitalize. It's something that's going to be actively undermining the community. It's withdrawing, extracting wealth from the community and making it worse off. And the fact that this is all being done by like 5 unelected bureaucrats in DC is truly remarkable for a party that has brought the whole unelected bureaucrat language to the common lexicon. But that is what's happening. And this whole talk, I resist the idea that this is the idea of like, this is a wise investment. This would be like me becoming the mayor of St. Paul and saying, I'm going to save you all taxes. We're not going to have cops anymore. How did that go when people proposed that, right? Like this is literally just sort of like you're ignoring the whole nature of things just to focus on the idea that we're not going to have, we're not going to spend this money as though it's not going to have an impact. It's going to have a massive impact and it's terrible. And in Texas, we see the outlines of it right now. Go ahead, Sean.
You're describing what Congress wanted to see happen. Who listens to Congress anymore? What are they there for? They should be called themselves as a Duma at this point.
Oh, you guys, like, I feel like there was a rant and then Sean just put the cherry on top of that rant right there.
I mean, it's just, what is one going to do here? I mean, like, I've said this when Donald Trump was elected, I said, you all are acting like he's going to have to follow the law, right? The law right now is that these states have this money and they should be spending it. And now we see multiple groups coming out, the Citizens Against Government Waste, which is a group so incompetent on broadband, I don't think they could tell you the difference between Starlink and fiber. They know nothing about this, but they're issuing press releases saying the states should give $22 billion back to the federal government, right? Like, we're not even expecting the federal government to follow the law when it comes to clawing this money back. We're just expecting it to have to go back. Many of us predicted this, and like we were told we were being political. Well, this is political, stripping billions of dollars out of rural Texas. You know, like, look at that map, pop it back up. When we showed this map to people in Texas, they were like, oh, of course. Like, you look at it and the money's going to like the areas that vote for the party in power more. And the people that are disregarded more are the red dots. You know, those are the people that are sort of getting trampled. Those are the regions that are going to see economic loss. And this is a political map. This isn't a map about cost savings. This is a map about politics, ultimately. So I just, like, it's infuriating to me. And the thing that kills me is that if, like, I think we should do this graphic. Jordan and I were talking about this. We should take a shot of all the locations that could be served by BEAD today. And then we can predict all the locations that will be served by BEAD after they get billions of our dollars. It's going to be the same damn map. That's the thing that kills me. This reserving capacity nonsense is ridiculous, Heather. They are taking in billions of dollars from private investors to build this. There's no reason for us to give them our taxpayer dollars. They're going to take our taxpayer dollars and they're going to serve the farmers of Argentina. That's what they're going to do.
You okay?
No.
You need a minute to breathe?
No.
Okay.
It's a bad day. It's been a bad day, and you can tell. I'm going to try and have a good face and humor about it, but it's a bad freaking day.
So I think I said this to you earlier, Chris. It's really hard to live through history, and we're in the middle of it right now. And it'll be really interesting from an academic perspective to see in a few years how this all goes. I think I 100% agree with your deep concerns about where the money is going and how it's going there, especially given the understanding that there are a number of companies playing in this kiddie pool, if you will, who have already received significant taxpayer incentives through other grants and things as well. And it is a bit of a mind bend when it comes to LEO satellites in particular, as to how that is truly infrastructure in the way that we traditionally think of it as a driver of economic, local economic development. And I think what it means is that consultants will be very happy for the next 10 years as we continue to try to solve the rural broadband problem. And it's not a great look, but we have to remember that passion is good and anger might stop people from being willing to work through it. So there you go.
Yeah, no, I mean, and we're not gonna spend. I mean, people have heard what we were saying about this before. But it is truly remarkable when you see the number of lost locations, the amount of money that's being pulled out, and the fact that we don't have a media that's capable about talking about this. So, like, we talk about it, and a few people tune in and try to get some sense out of my rants and all of the commentary that you all offer. But like, it is a historic like reversal from what was literally like, I mean, we spent 3 years talking about how BEAD was flawed and could have been better, but it was the best broadband program we had come up with. And now to see it hollowed out in this way and to spend time defending it now is just infuriating.
We've certainly lost the once in a lifetime moniker that we were talking about BEAD as before. The struggle continues, as with many other things, and hopefully we'll be able to make it better.
It's going to always be like this if we keep making it political, and everybody's politicizing this stuff. And so how do we get out of this stupid circle? We have to get at, like, I don't know, it goes back to Sean. What do we do about Congress and some of these things, right? It just becomes too political about all of this crap where nothing ever gets done.
Matt Larson would say infrastructure bank helps take some of the politics out of it. He's not wrong. Like,
no,
the idea of an infrastructure bank is itself political, but what are you going to do? Sean and Jordan, any other thoughts on BEAD before we move on to the next topic?
Yeah.
No, I think we beat that horse to death.
I just want to make a last point. I'm always going to flex my rural sociology degree that I never thought would be significant until now. I think the most frustrating part I can feel Chris's rage with, that I get enraged about, is because these rural places are losing this investment. I mean, I grew up in a rural area, and the constant talk is like, for context, I live in Georgia. People that are not in Atlanta, which is the capital, people are like, man, Atlanta gets all the good stuff. Why can't we get any of the good stuff? Like, we're great too down here. We provide so much with farming and everything. And it's just like, and then you see times like this where, ironically enough, and I call it the rural paradox, that the rural places tendency to vote Republican, these people are the reason why you're not getting investment. So it makes it really frustrating to have these conversations, because you're right. Kim's right. It shouldn't be political. It's just like rural places deserve to have this sort of investment because people live here, not because there's incentive for money to be made here. It's just because people live here. And if we all agree that this is an important thing for people to have, like how we over 100 years ago agreed that electricity was an important thing to have, then we should just invest in this, point blank, period. So, and then we're going to get mad in a couple of years when more people leave rural places because more stuff's going to get more online. AI is becoming more of a thing. People are going to have to move to get a better connection. And it's just like, and then you're going to get mad about why these places are dying. And it's just like, because we could have had the opportunity right here to really start making that foundation on investment for everybody. And now it's going to be gone. So it's just incredibly frustrating, because I just never want to have this conversation again in a couple of years. And hopefully by then, maybe we'll realize that it's not a political issue. It's a moral issue.
It's a social capital issue.
Yeah.
Right. One of the interesting articles, I don't have a link to it right handy, but TechDirt has an article talking about Elon Musk being furious about the Trump administration switching a contract to Kuiper. And I don't know the details of it. I expect that it was probably SpaceX would be the better contractor for it. I don't know. But it makes the case that the world that we are in right now is not one in which government picks contractors based on merit. And it's interesting, as you have some of the people who enabled us to get to this world now getting bit by that. And the thing that I come back to on SpaceX and Starlink, which I think is useful, even though Travis isn't here, I'm sure we'll talk about it the next time he is here, because he keeps talking about how wonderful his experience has been on Starlink. But the interesting thing is that, like, in order to get to the next generation of satellites, right, we just learned more about the V3 Starlink satellites, capable of doing a terabit, I think. I mean, just remarkable engineering and everything. But he's going to have to be launching those at a rate of 2 V3 Starship launches per week in order to maintain the constellation that he has in mind. And a corrupt federal government can stop him. Right. I mean, like, it's just the way it works right now. And when you see these contracts being switched around, like, again, the future is political for this stuff. And it's not just a question of whether the technology of the satellite works. There's a question of whether the economics work. And there's a question of whether or not the U.S. government allows those launches to happen. And there's a question of whether the rest of the world gets concerned about the number of launches going up and the impact on the atmosphere. And one of the things I find deeply frustrating is everyone thinks Starlink is baked into the future. Starlink could be this blip right now where we thought it would work out, and it could fail for any number of reasons unrelated to how wonderful the technology is. And I just keep feeling like no one's paying attention to that.
I don't know why Elon's upset about switching contracts. I mean, Jeff Bezos gave campaign money too, so he's got to get a little bit of something out of that, right? Elon knows how this works.
He didn't seem to on Twitter, or sorry, X. Any last comments on Starlink, Heather? I don't know if you or Kim have anything left on you on that. No.
Oh, Starlink isn't our future. Oh, okay. Besides that, keep moving on.
No,
but I do
be.
think it could be a blip. I absolutely believe that it could be a blip. But what does that look like? Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I had this conversation. Yeah, the other day.
If Elon Musk can figure out how to get ships into orbit using electricity without launches using that propellant, I have to shut my mouth for a long time if he's able to do that. For all my criticism of the man. One of the things that we want to talk about, it's not so much a news item, but Jordan, you can take off or you can stick around. It's up to you.
No, you got me rolling now. I'm staying.
All right. So, Jordan, you know a little bit about where this comes from because we talked about a little bit down there in Texas. But let's say for a second that we had something come into town, and as a result of that coming to town, that entity decided to put some money. Not enough to like fix a whole community, but enough to make a difference in like hundreds of people's lives, whether it's device distribution or digital equity training, digital like skill training, or even some level of network deployment or something like that. There was this question that was asked to me, sort of like, where would we put that money? And I was like, well, I'd like to see it go to a local government that had a plan. But as I thought about it, honestly, I couldn't recommend that because I think most local governments, if someone said, hey, we could write you a check for like $5 million to improve, internet access or digital device usage and stuff like that. I think most local governments would be like, we don't know what to do.
Where would they start? I mean,
they would start with a plan they freaking developed like years ago when they recognized that was a problem. Call me crazy. So, Kim, do you think it's unreasonable? Kim, do you think it is unreasonable to think local governments should have a plan in 2025, at the end of 2025, as to like how to make sure, like, is this a utility or is it not? That's what I want to know, I guess.
I don't think that cities I think some cities view it as a utility. I don't think that is the overwhelming opinion out there that is a utility. But I would say that if I was a city, why would I dedicate resources right now to say, this is our plan without any way to fund it, right? I think it's the chicken and the egg, right? You already don't have enough resources. So you can either hire somebody to help you develop the plan, but without any way to execute the plan. Isn't that a little bit silly? I mean, I get that they should. I think they should have a framework. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say, that they should have a framework of a plan, but I do not think they should have a full fledged plan because first of all, I think it can become outdated very quickly. And second is, you need the money. You just need the money.
Hard no. Sorry, but I'm not going to tell you why. I'll come back.
Okay, go.
No. I want to have someone else have a chance. Is it unreasonable to think local governments should have more of a handle on this?
No, it's not unreasonable. I don't think it's unreasonable. Theoretically, but I do tend to agree with Kim. I think that that's how a lot of cities kind of think about it. And frankly, when you think about cities, I think that there's also sort of the time element. It's like unfortunately, developing these kind of plans and doing stuff don't tend to fall neatly within people's like election cycles. And so it's hard, so I think some people don't want to spend political capital on something they don't feel like they can take credit for like immediately. And cities are much more interested in the more quote unquote sexy infrastructure things like how do we create more bike lanes and high-speed rail or
that's the example I thought of, Sean. And you know why? They have plans for bike lanes. But
I know it, right?
Jordan, I'm going to give you a pause. I'm going to go to Heather.
So let's just remember that not everybody's bootstraps are made of the same material. Pulling yourself up by your bootstraps sort of matters what kind of bootstraps you have. There are cities and towns out there that don't have offices that they operate out of. They don't have the same kind of resources. Planning like that requires resources and people to organize and do those resources and money to pay for those resources. And a good a good number of local governments just don't have that. Now, a good number of them do. And it's really about, as someone said earlier, the level of importance that they place on that. And if it's not bubbling up naturally and organically, then locally, it might not be as important to them as it is to others. And that's kind of how, I know this sounds antithetic to what we're all saying. That's kind of how it should be. The local community should be driving the things that they need. And if they haven't identified that it's a thing that they need, then they're not going to spend time on it. But I think it's hard. I think it's hard to sort of blanket, have a stereotype conversation, if you will, about planning like that without considering and understanding that some places just don't have the ability to do it. It is a luxury to be able to hire a consultant to help to do that planning. And they don't then therefore have the local support internally to do it as well. That's right. The cold hard facts.
Also, I think a lot of people in, even in municipal, official positions, it's not like obvious to them that like it's kind of like it's one of those things where people go, well, everybody has internet. So it's not like if people don't have roads, or you have people that are living in the woods and there's no roads, that's kind of like obvious in other kind of things that we would consider utilities. But when it comes to like internet connectivity, I think people's first assumption is that everybody has internet that wants it. So what's the problem?
I don't know how you can be a local government person in touch with the electorate and not have a sense that there's a significant gap. I mean, certainly not paying attention to the schools. Every last teacher knows it. You ask any teacher, they know it. Like there's lots of people who see it on the regular. So, to me, that's just not paying that close attention. Kim, I know you're having a reaction. I've had lots of reactions I want to have, but Jordan hasn't had.
I agree with it. Yeah. But I was going to say, I agree with Sean and Heather, and we know we're all three against you. So let's go, Jordan. Which side are you picking?
Yeah. I just, I told Chris this quote, but I always tell people sometimes you can't plan, but you need to outline. Like, I think having a good outline about this is important. Because like Chris said, if you're a true local government that actually knows its people, you'll know this is an issue. This kind of goes into Sean's mentioning of like people saying, well, why are we still talking about this? Like if somebody is saying that, then like they're not really in tune with what's going on in their local community. So it should be, like Heather said, like everybody's different. I love the bootstraps analogy. I think that's completely right. But I also think, yeah, concept of a plan, right? Exactly. Well, that's a bad example of that. Mine is the way better version. We outline around here because outline allows you to have gaps in between, like because life's going to happen. Like you never know in local governments, like what prioritizes something higher. You know what I mean? Right. So, but you should at least have a frame of reference with this. So when the time comes where somebody's like, "Hey, I'm actually willing to give you money," you're not like, "I don't have anything." At least you have like a skeleton, bare minimum.
I feel like there's a lot of wisdom coming from you, Jordan. I don't know. I'm gonna have to make sure that we don't highlight you too much. I'm gonna start looking worse and worse compared to my colleagues here. I do feel like, Heather, I feel like your answer to some extent is like dependent on the idea that like you need a consultant, and I think Jordan's answer is a closer one, just in that, I mean, there is a sense, I feel like, of not my job. This drives me nuts, right? I mean, this is the inherent problem with bureaucracy. And I just the City of Embers, it's like a YA book and movie, I guess. Jordan's shaking his head. I think I nailed it with that. My son got into it. We watched it, and like, there's this classic line of the guy's like, I don't know, it's not my job. And like there's a lack of curiosity. And I feel like we haven't always had that, right? Like the reason we have electric co-ops isn't because local governments were on the ball. It was because farmers were like, we got to get together and figure this thing out, right? And so like the thing is that like there's people that need to step up in their communities to take more leadership and to perhaps be recognized or perhaps be working against local government for some of this. But like this isn't something to just blame on the bureaucrats and the elected people. Like it's a whole community thing. Heather?
Agree. And I mentioned the term earlier, social capital, and Jordan was like, yes, social capital. That's what I'm talking about. It's the moral compass, how we engage with each other. What is our social capital in these communities that clearly do need better connectivity, and how are they moving forward? And I don't think everybody needs a consultant to do this. But I do think that if that's their option for bringing in the braining power to even start that concept of a framework, Thank you. I'll try not to laugh in the background at that. Then, they're still that much farther behind. So how they organize, how they utilize the social capital that they have, how they, get there really does matter at the end of the day. I think in that regard, we're all saying the same thing. We're just saying it from different angles.
Right, but it also is a different beast when you live in a big city urban environment with all of the bureaucracy, and when you're in a smaller rural community where I'm saying it's easier for folks to come together and say, let's do something about it and create like an electric cooperative. But I feel like the dynamic is a little bit different, and also a lot more obvious among what are the needs of folks in the community. I think in urban environments, especially in mid to larger cities, it's kind of difficult, even when there's real legitimate needs in the community, it can be difficult for those needs to penetrate into City Hall. In
100%.
I just want to highlight real quickly, we keep on saying social capital. So I want to put another drop of stuff I used to learn in school. My professors would be so proud of me. So like in a community framework, there's 7 types of capital, right? There's like cultural capital, human capital, social capital we talked about, political capital, all these things, right, come into what we call like a community like ecosystem, like what makes a community like click. I think a lot of what we're saying, what Heather mentioned is like, yeah, we're all kind of speaking from the same thing, but from different tiers. But I think to get to kind of critical point of like, how do we make that shift that Kim said of just like, how do we not make this political? It's taking this issue. People look at this as political capital. We need to move this to a social thing. We need to move this to a social thing. Now, how do we do that? I guess that's the big question. But I think having these sort of conversations now is a good place to start.
Jordan, can I just tell you that I have not remembered anything my professors have said in 20 years. So I do appreciate that you can still.
You done went to the wrong school.
The Georgia education there, gotcha. But
Jordan, I feel like you and I need to have a conversation about Robert Putnam's books and just like dive in.
Yes. We'll talk offline. Absolutely. Every time you're on, Heather, I'm just like, yes.
I want to turn to something, and I hope the Map Lady is still around, because would love to get some comments. There's a report that I just threw in here that I doubt that any of you had a chance to read, but Telecompetitor is reporting on a new report from one of these sites online that it's like kind of clickbaity, like where they do some basic research. Like they'll do unique research, but they kind of do it in a way to just try to get some cool headlines to get people to come check out their site and then get their referral bonuses and things like that. It says 8 million Americans are still offline after they looked at the 2024 ACS data from the census, saying 94% of U.S. households have internet access. It's the highest rate ever recorded by the Census Bureau. And I'm going to get people's reactions, because my gut is like, no, I don't believe it. Like, I mean, I think it's definitely, it's a higher number than that. And I'm also I feel like there's this issue in which I think we could agree that there's like different clumps, right? There's like online, right? The 4 of us, the 5 of us, even all online. The groups of people who will like never be online, who have no interest, who, for whatever reason, or they live in areas in which it's not an option or whatever, like, and they're just like, they're going to expire without ever having been online. And like, there's a lot of other people in between. And it's like, if I have a mobile phone and I'm going home to a family of 4, like, am I online?
Right. That's my first reaction is to the question when they say 94% of Americans, have access to the internet. Is that home internet? Is that mobile only? Because I think if you subtract the mobile only, I think that number grows significantly.
I think you're right. Heather, did you have a reaction to this? Did you have a chance to look at it at all?
I did. I think part of what's interesting about how they put their headlines on, I 100% agree, it's a bit clickbaity. Still doesn't change the fact that the United States is the most connected country in the world, that we lead everybody else.
No, come on. Yeah. There's Estonia. I mean, if you want to say like the largest, like, but like, let's go to Estonia, Heather. Let's go check it out. Like, I've read enough to suggest and talk to people from like the Baltics there.
Sure. But what I mean, percentage wise, the access that we have, the ability to get online. The majority of we have more people in the United States with the ability to get online now. Do they
I assume
necessarily
you mean
do
per
that?
capita. I
Yeah.
disagree. I find that hard to believe, but I don't want to keep in. I don't
I
want to keep
feel
interrupting.
like Chris and Heather, we just need to put you guys in a rink right now with gloves.
Well, no, like, I mean, let's be clear. Like, I mean, I love this country, and I would rather live here than anywhere else. And there's evidence for that, for the fact that I'm the kind of guy that probably could go just about anywhere, and I choose to stay here. And so Heather, like, I don't know, like, there's a part of me that wants to be like, yeah, we're the best, but like, honestly,
I'm not saying we're the best. I'm saying most people in the United States have some kind of access to the internet.
Maybe I just
say we
misheard
were the
you then.
best.
Okay, all right.
Didn't say that at all.
You know what we need? We need a what would Travis do moment right here. And what's missing between Heather and Chris is a big fat bet on chicken wings right now.
I'm all for this.
I might know that Heather does like her meat, right? Like a red meat.
So Juan loves to point out when I talk about this and the fact that like most other countries have fewer people than us. Like, yes, Juan, unless like, you know, like although China like seems to be doing pretty well too with a lot more people, but like if you only have the resources of 1.3 million people, connecting all of them is hard. Just as if you have the resources of 333 million people or whatever we have. Finland's bigger. Scandinavia, like the Scandinavian countries, take them as a whole. Like, you know, like I don't know what to do with someone who's saying that. Like, yes, there are differences, but like the fact that everyone in North Dakota has a fiber connection outside of the cities, to me, suggests that our problem isn't one of rurality. It is one of other things. Sorry, Heather, I interrupted you back and you're making a point. I thought you were saying that the US has done a better job connecting people than anyone else, but I think I misheard you.
I didn't say that. I said that we've got more people per capita with access than pretty much any other country in the world. That doesn't mean it's good access, not in any way, shape, or form. We got there's still people on dial-up in this world that we live in here. That's
1% actually, or 0.9% according to that report.
And I think AOL just, you know, stopped doing their online or, you know, dial-up stuff. So,
right.
I don't remember my point because you distracted me.
I'm sorry. Zucchini.
It's okay. It's okay.
I get my bigger question is, and I guess this is more like me throwing this out there about it. You said what 0.9% based off that report it says that people on DSL?
No.
I mean
dial-up.
Dial-up. Okay. Should we be more proud of the fact that we have so many people connected, or should we be more keen on the fact that there's still that amount of Americans that are still on that?
Well, it's a good question, and that's what I was thinking about. See, when I hear a number like 94% of people are connected, to me, I think that suggests to a lot of people that what's the problem? Almost everybody's on, and you're always going to have a couple of Luddites out there that don't want to use the internet. So let's move on to a different issue or something like that. And so that's why I think it's important to ask questions about the reliability and quality of that connectivity, because it's not, you know, whether it's, you know, you said dial-up, but you know, what percentage of that is DSL? What percentage of that are people who have some crappy cable company where the internet seems like it's always down right when you need it the most? And so all of those things to me come into play as to how serious this issue is and what needs to be done to address it. But when you just hear this raw number of 94% have internet access, it almost suggests going like this and moving on to a different subject.
Yeah, I get a kick out of this to some extent. So recently, in like the same week, Felix Salmon, who's like a big like money guy, like investor who is known for like wines and all kinds of stuff. He runs the Slate Money podcast, and he did this whole thing about how like I switched to T-Mobile and it's no different from fiber. It's amazing. It does everything I need it to do. And at the same time that week, I got two different notes, I think, from someone, Jordan, on our team and Sean. Two different people on our team who are like, I'm in a T-Mobile home internet connection contract. Can I get out of it? It's terrible. I can't handle this. Like, I didn't know that it wouldn't work during prime time. And so like, I just like, you know, ACS is a survey-based data source. And like, this is the problem ultimately. And why I don't take it that seriously is because like, in previous years when we ran the analyses, I didn't run it, but Derek Turner from Free Press told me that on ACS, like twice as many people report having satellite as the satellite companies themselves report serving. And so like you have like a bunch of people that are like, oh yeah, I use satellite internet, and they're really on like Comcast or something. So like self-reported data, here we are again.
I think what you really see is sort of a lack of, when you hear that number 94%, it's a lack of understanding where that 94% is. And the geography of the United States varies in such a way that the majority of those 94% live in high density areas or higher density areas, which means that the distribution of resources is easier for them because it costs less to get them service. So we have a rural broadband problem. And then after that, we've got an affordability problem as well.
Right. But I do think when you say it's first a rural problem, it's interesting because I think there's 3 times as many people in the cities that aren't connected as there are in rural areas who aren't connected.
Aren't connected is one thing. That's it. They have the ability to connect if they want it. And that has to do with affordability.
Right. I think that's right.
You think so I think we're saying the same thing, but I'm not, in my mind.
I just want people to know the scale. I feel like a lot of people are like, the problem is rural. And I'm like, there is a rural problem. We could have half the states on the way to resolving it right now, but we've chosen not to. And it's really for our economic benefit that we've chosen not to. So going back into that. Last thing we're going to talk about here. I wanted to know, again, kind of a weird little thing. AT&T is buying Lumen. And so, Kim, I wanted to ask you, so as a person who's very happy with my Lumen fiber and who thinks AT&T is possibly the worst of all the telecom companies in terms of their impact on the United States, they lobby for the worst things. They are the least interested in like helping out low income folks and doing stuff. Their executives go on to do the worst things after they leave AT&T, like destroying the Red Cross. So should I switch to Comcast even though I'll have inferior connectivity now that Comcast doesn't have bandwidth caps anymore? When AT&T is my is my ISP?
Well, first of all, I think, Chris, you have to do what's best for you because let's be honest, no company is perfect. And I don't think that you can take what AT&T has done in the past and guarantee you that that is what is going to happen going forward. So I'm going to be an optimist right here. But I mean, Comcast is doing some pretty big things. And I think I've always said that they're about to come out to play, but I think it just really depends. I don't think any of those guys are that bad. I know you think that they are the evil on the top of the evil cake, but I don't tend to agree because I just think it's, what are they trying to accomplish? And I think a lot of these guys are doing better than they ever have done. And I think that AT&T might be on that list too. So I'm going to say it's up to you, Chris.
Right.
And
anyone else want to tell me what to do?
Yeah. Well, if it's any consolation, Chris, we got notice, what was it, yesterday, a couple of days ago, that the CWA has now, who was opposed to this merger, AT&T and Lumen, they've now reached a contract settlement with them, and so they're all good now. So if CWA is happy with Lumen and AT&T right now, maybe you should be.
Maybe
just because
maybe
they have just because they reached an agreement doesn't mean that they're happy. I'm just going to say that.
Well, there you go, Heather, with logic again. But I mean, I guess the question back to you, Chris, is there any reason besides what you think could happen for you to switch from Lumen?
I don't want to give money to AT&T is what it comes down to. And I thought it'd be an interesting topic to sort of wrestle with this issue of. So I'd be going down to a slower upload speed, but Comcast service was rock steady while I had it. In my neighborhood, it's really good. So I'd be having a slower upload speed. The issue that I always had with Comcast was their caps. But now that there's more competition, they got rid of the caps. Go ahead, Heather.
I think as any responsible consumer, you should also look at the pricing and what they're offering. And whether or not you're going to have to spend time and energy going back on a yearly basis and renegotiating with them by threatening to cancel. There are some companies out there that are getting to a point where they're going to offer free service if you sign up for this other thing. And so it's really going to come down to how this is a good thing about expansion, by the way. when you have more than one big player in a market, prices go down. And so that's what I'm starting to see in some places where you have all of the big players in one place, and they're realizing that if they really want to make good money, they're going to have to give something away for what it actually costs them to do it.
I think you're wrong. I think we're going to see that temporarily, and then they're going to buy each other, so they don't have to do that anymore.
Well, probably, like, that's the pessimistic view, absolutely. But for the meantime, I'm happy to say that the idea of creating markets in certain places is happening. And so how market consolidation happens after that is too far down the road at this moment, given the history we're living through, to even contemplate in my mind. It might make your brain explode.
Jordan? High five.
Yeah, bam. We talked about this on our last Community Broadband Bits podcast briefly, but I think your question is a trick question, because in my head, I'm just like, does it really matter? They're going to buy each other anyway. Because that's where I feel like it's going. It's just like, it feels like why I had the reaction that you had about that is because, to me, instead of just giving you quality service or just doing the things that the companies said they're going to do, these companies much rather will lobby, buy each other, and play this little game just to make sure they're at the top of the food pyramid, wherever it is. And it's just, I just find it incredibly frustrating. I'm just like, does it even really matter? Like, I have AT&T, and part of me is like, okay, cool, until like what? Until one day one person buys somebody else, and I have to deal with that because there's only one option in my neighborhood anyway. So it's just like, I have a very pessimistic view of this, but it's just like, does it really matter?
You're right. I will say that in terms of the long scale, it does not matter at all. I thought it'd be a conversation to draw out a few things, and I'll say that, like, I think AT&T is legitimately worse. Now, this is an example that goes back quite a ways, but like, when there's been informal audits of like AT&T and the E-rate program, they find they're massively overcharging schools to, like, rip taxpayer dollars away, right? Like, I remember, like, they were accused of and settled, so I don't know that there was like any admission of wrongdoing, but like in the South, in Tennessee, in Georgia, and I think Alabama, AT&T systematically lied to like regulators about how many T1 lines it had in order to offer a lower price in the marketplace and not pay a tax that went to fund the 911 centers, the emergency phone call centers. And I don't know, like, when you're doing that on a systematic basis, like, this is one of those things. Like, I think Comcast is awful on like a bunch of things. At the same time, Internet Essentials is better than all of the other companies combined. I think Comcast has a little bit more of a soul than anyone else. And like, I know that friends of mine will be like, what are you talking about? These aren't people. But like, go ahead, Kim. Tell me I'm wrong.
Like, how do you know? Like, how do you know this? I mean, what is
because we can see the evidence. Like, it's right out there. AT&T and Charter have done nothing to help anyone that's low income connected, right? They do the bare minimum of what's required, and even then, they barely do that.
Your metric is the Comcast Essentials. Yeah, your metric is Comcast Essentials of which one is better because of their low.
That is a big piece of it.
Okay, fair enough. I'm just asking questions.
Since I mentioned Travis earlier, do you mind if I channel a little bit of Doug on this? What would Doug say right now? I don't know, but I'm going to say that it would maybe you should be a lab rat, Chris, because isn't like Comcast going to be rolling out DOCSIS 4.0 soon, and so you could be a lab rat and see how that compares to fiber. That's my Doug impression. Except I don't have a tie dye or. I would be
that lab rat. Although they have to string a new line. It may have disappeared during some construction work.
That you were involved in.
I'm not saying. I may recollect it. I may not. I appreciate you all tuning in. It's been a week. It's been a week with a lot of highs and some lows. I'm a little bit tired today and grumpy. And there wasn't like a ton of news, but I just feel like we hadn't really covered some aspects of this. Like, I feel like, at the end of the day, I don't want to talk about BEAD every week, but it just, when you actually look at the numbers, it really is striking. And Heather makes a good point. Like, I hope someone has the capacity to dig into those spreadsheets to figure out like what justifications were given for why these locations were dropped. And if I had to guess, I would guess a significant number of them because of investments that were made from other government programs. But I would suspect the majority of them were for illegitimate reasons in terms of whether or not those locations actually have good service now. And then that whole area with just, Oh, the last thing about that was we didn't talk about this. So we'll wrap with this. Starlink. What's the average subsidy they're getting in Texas, Kim? Any idea?
Oh, I have no idea on
We've
this.
covered
What
this in
is
other
it?
places. Do you remember what it was in Tennessee, I feel like, in Louisiana?
You mean per cost or total?
Per location. So if you take the total number
I mean,
of
yeah.
locations getting
Ooh.
Starlink and the total amount of money given to them, what is the average that is being distributed? Heather,
I'm
don't
going
be
to go
don't be
3,000.
thinking.
I'm going to go 3,000. What is it?
3,000's high. My recollection is we were between 750 and 1,000 in a lot
I
of
was
states.
thinking 1,000, but I was like, I feel like you were trying to trick me. So what is it in Texas?
Heather, do you know? Do
750?
you have any idea?
I don't. I know generally what it is in other states, so I'm kind of interested to hear this. And I know that
Texas.
it's varied across other states as well, which is, in my mind, very surprising.
Yeah, exactly. Like $1,700 per location in Texas, which is higher than I've seen most places. I don't remember seeing that high anywhere.
Yeah, in other states, it's
$1,700?
$1,200. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, because it's Oh, Heather, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was saying because Chris is right, because Texas rewarded SpaceX I'm looking at the number, 108.8 million to cover 63,963 locations. So like, you can do the math there, but like, 1,700 seems like a lot.
For reserving capacity for something that's already raised private dollars to do.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Any way to end on a positive note here? I mean, I will say that like
Today's Friday. That's positive.
Today's Friday. We are not in the worst timelines. Like we have each other. Among. I mean, it's better for me. You all have me, but I have you. So like in my world, that's all right.
Remember to just breathe, Chris. Just breathe.
No, I understand that. It is difficult at times. I just, because I read these books and you get a sense of how things worked out, and we're here in the middle of it, living through history, as you put it, Heather. It's a good reminder. Yeah. And I do think, we are going to get through this. And I've told people before, Jordan said we went through this 100 years ago, electrification. 100 years ago in electrification, we were right here. Like now is now, like in the Spaceballs movie, right? Like we're at now. Because we're in a situation in which all the cities had it and 90% of the farms did not have it, and they were rolling out issues. And there's this thing, and I'll leave you with this because like I love this story so much, right? FDR comes into office and it's like 1932 and they don't have a plan. In 1934, it's becoming more and more of a big deal, and there's a sense that they have to do something about it. And so what's his name? The New York Republican who worked for the Roosevelt administration, Ickes is responsible for it. He's talking to Edmund Cookie, who I think is Cookie, not Cook. I don't know. But anyway, he says, Cook. Go off. Sorry, is it Cook?
It's Cook.
So yeah, maybe you know this better than I do. He goes off and he's like, Cook, find me a plan. And Cook comes back and he's like, I talked to a lot of people, and it turns out we just got to work with the electric monopolies. And Harold Ickes says to him, quoted verbatim, I won't work with the sons of bitches. Find another way. And so he's like, well, there are these folks in Pennsylvania, and I'm kind of glossing over some things, but they're doing this weird co-op thing. And they're like, let's run with that. But like they knew that they couldn't trust those electricity monopolies. And because of that, we have had like 70, 80 years of electricity in rural areas that pays for itself, is a really wonderful, smart investment that has like been largely well run. In some cases, it has been abusive. We've talked about that before, but it generally worked. And in 1930, you wouldn't have known that was around the corner. So, we gotta keep working, Jordan.
We need some more of that icky energy. I thought this was going to be a segue to talk about Woodrow Wilson, so I'm proud of you.
No, I love it. Thanks for the Woodrow Wilson.
I think it'll be an interesting case study 20 years from now to compare the highs and lows of the electrical process that we went through at the turn of the 19th century and the internet development process at the turn of the 20th century, essentially. It's literally, you're not wrong. And I think we'll see patterns there. History rhymes. Rhymes. So hopefully we get it right. And hopefully on all fronts, meaning we get it right. But, it is what it is, man. There you go.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for joining me on a Friday. In 2 weeks' time, Jordan and I will just be coming back from the Tribal Broadband Bootcamp in Southern California. And so I'm not going to be here, but we'll be here back at some point after that. So we're going to wait for Doug to heal up and Travis to run out of excuses, and then we're going to come back. So any last words from anyone?
Travis did ask me how it was going. He texted me during the show, and I said, Woodrow Wilson. So thank you, Sean.
There you go. My last words was I finally got my TSA pre-check. Yay.
It's only like 15 years later, but I mean, good for you.
It's only like 15 years after Chris has been telling me to sign up for it.
All right, everyone. Thank you all for tuning in. And don't forget, map your fiber.